Osseo wine. Osseo vinum. Winus Epirus.
I don't think that that's working. Just give me. Osseo wine.
Ah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bet you can't guess what our topic in today's video is.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Married with Comics for our magical video about everyone's favorite witches. So before we get into the glorious content, because we are only covering 2 titles. Why? Because we wanted to take some additional time and really focus in on one of each of our favorites. So before we get into all the goodies,
Yes.
we have our upcoming live show on the Kraken's Horde. This Friday, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are doing a fundraiser for the channel. And anyone who purchases something from that live show, we will send them a custom-made Married with Comics bookmark.
Very cool bookmark.
Yes. I had to redesign it 3 times. I hope to God it ships in time. If it doesn't, you will get a letter in the mail with your custom-made bookmark. They have been a challenge, but a worthy one all at the same time.
Worth the wait.
And secondly, of course, please make sure to continue to like, subscribe, and comment on these videos. You guys have been amazingly supportive, and we are still growing. We probably aren't going to reach our 1,000 subscribers by this Friday, but that's okay. We are going to reach 1,000 subscribers soon. And we are going to do a different giveaway for 1,000 subscribers. Have I figured out what it is? No. I'll figure it out after we get through our 31 comics of Halloween. This month has been pretty epic.
Yes, it has.
So, Scott, you picked one witch title. Which one did you pick?
Which witch did I pick?
Which witch?
So, as many of you know, I'm a big fan of Celtic mythology, Celtic music even. We used to go to the Highland Games at Grandfather Mountain. And then I happened to be somewhere one day glancing at shelves full of books, and I saw Robbie Burns' Witchhunter. And Robbie Burns, for those of you who don't know, was Scotland's National Poet Laureate. He's known for his poetry, Tam O'Shanter, quite a few, Old Lang Syne. You know, so we sing it set to music at New Year's. Anyhow, that's Robbie Burns lyrics. There are still places around the world, including here in the United States, where they have Robbie Burns dinners on his birthday to celebrate him. There's a poem that is read, and it's a poem that he wrote to haggis.
Yeah.
So anyhow, Robbie Burns' Witch Hunter. I saw the title, had me at that. I couldn't resist. It's just about as Scottish as you can get, too. This was put out by a group called Renegade Arts, but it's written by Emma Beebe and Gordon Rennie, illustrated by Tiernan Trevelyan, and letters and production by Jim Campbell. But then I opened it and I saw the artwork, and I was like, yes, please. I would like some more. There's some beautiful drawings in here. It's got a very dark, ominous feel to it, where it's applied, but you can still see what's going on and pick out in the murkiness the shadows that are moving. But then it also has its brighter, we'll call it more lyrical moments, where he's partying or working on his poetry and the bucolic beauty of his Scottish farmland in the area he grew up around. But basically, it's got it all. The writing is spectacular. There's even a point in time where he, to not give away too much of the story, he happens across, when he's not in his finest state, he's drunk, a coven. And as he's kind of watching them, trying to figure out what's going on, he is approached by 2 people who are witch hunters. They save his life that night from the coven, but then it proceeds that he receives a mark. They decide that they're going to give him a chance to recover from this mark and see what he does, and if he becomes stronger and is able to resist. And in the end, he winds up becoming a witch hunter as well. The witch hunters are, it's a man and a woman. The woman is a fiery Scottish redhead. Another reason I like this story. because, you know, witch hunters can also be badass chicks with swords and cutlasses and muskets. At one point, you know, he's battling, because this is Robbie Burns, so we're talking about a great poet, right? And they even make fun of him at the beginning about like, oh, great poet are you? Yeah. Because remember, he's drunk when they first meet him. He starts coming into his power, his abilities, we'll call it. And I just want to read you just this little excerpt, okay? Because he's fighting a demon, and he says, oh, backed by all the powers of heaven. And the demon basically says, well, you think those words have any power over me, etc., etc. Robbie's answer is, words? You think I've nae words within me? O thou, whatever title suit thee, auld horny Satan, Nick or Clutie, great is thy power and great thy fame, far kenned and noted is thy name. Now auld Clutes and kine you're thinking, as certain bardies rant and drinking, some luckless hour will send him linking to your black pit. But faith, he'll turn a corner jinking and cheat you yet. I mean, come on. And the entire time that he's doing this little poem, he's fighting and cutting the demon to pieces. I mean, so if you like that lyrical quality in literature, poetry in particular, and you like a good old-fashioned butt-kicking, romping story, and there's a lot of humor mixed with good art, I mean, what's not to like? This is your book. And I will say that the kind of love interest that's sprinkled throughout it, it never gets like boring or pedantic. It doesn't slow the action of the story down. This is about witch hunters. There also happens to be a little bit of a love interest story interwoven in it. And it makes sense if you know anything about his poetry. In this one common thread that goes from almost the beginning of this to the very end is him working on one of his most famous poems, My Love is Like a Red, Red Rose. It's a love poem, and he's struggling with it in this book. It's hilarious at times, it's sad at times. It's the reason that the love story is in this book, and its culmination is him finally getting the words to the poem through this inspiration that he has from this other person.
So compared to, you know, Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, you know,
yes.
like, is it in that same tongue-in-cheek tone, or is it completely different?
So it's a similar tone in that you're taking an actual historical figure and you're placing them not in modern times or time warp or anything like that, but in their own time, but then just slightly tweaking it. You're just taking a other side of history, unknown history, maybe. It's written in a way that's legitimate enough that you think could have happened. So Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, it wasn't my favorite. My favorite that this reminds me much more of, and we were both surprised by,
Pride and Prejudice and Zombies?
Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. That movie I never expected to like, and I really, really did. And it was, again, so believable that you were just in that era with these people who also happened to be kicking zombie ass. It was never like, you know, oh, well, how do we figure out how to get them in there, and how did the zombies appear, and how do they learn their special, like, it all just made sense. This makes sense. The way it's written, the way that you meet him, the way you watch the progression. It's definitely a good read for this time of year because of the witches and because of the scenes and the setting of it. But it's also something I think I would read throughout the year, kind of as a historical fantasy, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
So my title, on the other hand, is the one that I have pretty much been talking to you all about since the very beginning, and that is Wytches, written by Scott Snyder, and the art is done by Jock. Now, this will always remain one of my top 3 comics. This one did it all for me, and I think a lot of it has to do with the art style that Jock created, because he has kind of the normal everyday world aesthetic that he creates, and then he has this very creepy style, and there's just something about it that as soon as you start seeing that artwork created and you see some of these just creepy, ghastly moments, that it puts you on the edge of your seat, and it is definitely a thriller. I mean, I could not be torn away from it. It was that good. You have kind of the writing style, you have the artwork that sort of creates this visceral storyline. But what makes this so much better than a lot of the other horror titles that are out there, and why this one always resonates with me, is because at the end of the day, this is a story about a father and daughter and their relationship and that kind of trust that is being built. So you have our main character, Sailor. Sailor is a girl who has struggled with panic attacks and anxiety and just can't get through a day without these moments where
she kind of unravels.
She unravels. And her father is always trying to help her get past her fears and to conquer them, but you can tell that they're constantly holding her back. So they move to a new town, except a student at the school singles her out and decides to bully her. Except the bully does something that is absolutely, truly heinous. And in that moment that something bad is about to happen to Sailor, Sailor wishes that this bully would get her comeuppance, and then suddenly something happens to the bully. And Sailor is left wondering, did she do that to the bully? Was it the woods? Was it the town that they're in?
Giving away a lot of the story.
Oh no, this is all within the first 4 or 5 pages.
Wow, I see why you got hooked.
This story was incredible. There is a sequel planned. Scott Snyder and Jock have both agreed that they will do a sequel. The thing is, they've also mentioned that they are going to do the sequel for years now. We do not know when it is going to be released. However, this has been optioned for film. I cannot wait. I don't care if it's a TV series. I don't care if it's a movie. I will be there, bells and whistles on, to watch and enjoy Wytches.
Sounds awesome.
It's incredible.
And I know, so you talked about the artwork, and I know you're going to show some stills in it. It seems similar to one of the things that I liked about Robbie Burns' Witch Hunter, in that you can tell from the individual panels the tone.
Yes.
And they pick an overall tone or color palette or color temperature or whatever, so that when they're doing dark and sinister and twisty things, it's one way, but when they're doing, in mine, I'd keep describing it as lyrical because he's working on this poem. He's, my love is like a fresh mown hay. No, that's not right. But while he's working on that, it's a very different color tone. And he's in what we would call our world. He's walking in the light. And then when they're dealing with the dark and the demons and the witches, and it's the shadow, work that has to be done with his fellow witch hunters, it's a completely different tone. And you can tell instantly when sometimes even within the same page, but definitely when you turn the page, we're getting into the dark twisty, or this is a bucolic scene.
The way it was best described is, for this book, the color palette is definitely very bright when we're dealing with kind of a normal setting, and it's almost like in my head I can practically picture the change in the music that would take place in the story.
Yeah.
The music is there where suddenly everything goes a little da-da-da-da-da. Something's going to happen.
Yep. You lose the sound effects, but they're kind of painting it with colors and tones as opposed to that.
And what it almost looks like that Jock did with this series is it almost looks like a color overlay where suddenly you have the tones are darker, but it's almost like there are squiggles and blotches of color that are kind of tossed on there, almost in a way to show you that something's not right, something's a little jumbled, something's a little messy about what's going on, and you can't piece it together as quickly or as easily. One of the things that Philadelphia, great example, for that story, when you start dealing with a flashback, there is a distinctive, we have concluded this scene, or we've at least kind of given it that drop-off point, and we're mid-sentence, then we have our full-fledged flashback that's going to last for 4 pages, and then we're going to jump back to our main storyline. For this one, we have flashbacks of the relationship between the father and daughter in this story. You see it sometimes seamlessly jumping between, one page it's here on one, section of panels, and then we have what's going on in reality. And you have this kind of seamless jumping in and out of the time frames, but it also helps build some of the tension that's going on today, and then it also shows that progression of that relationship between the father and daughter, that you see, you know, why you're invested, why you care so much that, you know, Sailor gets out of this situation. So those are our witchy titles. Now,
Yes.
there are plenty of others that you could have read. You know, there's Sabrina the Teenage Witch, there's
Oz by Zenoscope.
Zenoscope's Oz.
I mean, there's
Scarlet
the Witch
Witch
is a prominent character in the Suicide Squad movie and also in some of the comics.
There's a couple
Scarlet
others.
Witch, yeah.
Inkblot is one I just found out about a couple days ago that also has some witches as the main characters.
Technically Penny Dreadful.
So the question is there a witchy title that you all have read and recommend?
The question is, how do I get this thing to get me chocolate? Osseo chocolate. I think it's in the Swish and Flick. I never have got that right. Osseo cocoa. Does it have to rhyme?
It helps.
So, sunshine, daisies, coffee lattes, bring me something chocolate. Huh? No, it didn't work.
No. Let's just... Don't worry. I've got this. Now, as I was saying, so we will see you all again very soon with more witchy titles, and we look forward to hearing your comments, and please make sure to continue to subscribe to the channel, and fine. I suppose I'll bring Scott back for the next video too.
Check us all out on Friday at the live show.
Kraken's Horde, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We will see you then.
Careful where you point that thing.
Behave yourself.
Yes, dear.
Have a great day, everyone.